It's my great pleasure to announce an exclusive interview with Alex Collier on Exopolitics Today. And in this interview, Alex and I cut loose on a lot of very controversial topics that we cannot discuss on YouTube. So this video will not be made available on YouTube in full. You will have to watch it on alternative platforms such as Patreon, but it will be also available elsewhere. So just follow the links for where to watch this interview in full. So we discuss the origin of secret space programs. We discuss how the deep state has been monopolizing information networks, how it's been creating a slave society. We discuss the future in terms of financial currencies, in terms of false flag operations, either an alien invasion or a crypto-terrestrial invasion. And also we discuss the future, whether or not Earth is headed for a time of great unity, both globally and in space, or whether the deep state is going to perpetuate these things. I think you're going to come away from this interview with a lot of very helpful insights into what lies before us. Alex has been doing this research, or more correctly, he's been having experiences with extraterrestrials from the Andromeda constellation since the early 1990s when he went public. Before that, he had contact with them, but in the early 1990s, he went public. So he's got over 30 years experience talking about these subjects. He was the first one to actually talk about secret space programs. This was in the early 1990s when he wrote about or spoke about colonies that the Earth military had established in other solar systems. So this is at a time when people were still debating whether UFOs are real or not, let alone secret space programs existed, and that Earth had established colonies in other solar systems. So he was talking about that in the early 1990s, and it's my great pleasure to bring him to Exopolitics Today.
You're listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Well, I watched your video yesterday, your webinar about where we're heading, Alex, and I think that in a way this is very much like the revolution. The 1776, the revolution, and we seem to be going to something very, very similar. So, yeah, I just think that this is a time of incredible opportunity for people if they take in the fullness of the events happening around us, especially when it comes to the secret government, the manipulation, the control, the kind of slave debt system they've imposed, the UFO secrecy they've imposed. It all seems to be all designed for the purpose of just controlling us. And now it's like this is our chance to revolt and get our freedom, just like the Americans in that 1776 era decided that, okay, this is the time. We've got to act. If we don't act, we're done.
Well, throughout history, many of the monarchies controlled their people by force, physical force, threat of death, etc. There were no printing presses, there were no internet, there were no phone communications, there were carrier pigeons, and if you were lucky, letters, right? Or word of mouth. But, most of the world was at that time were small communities. Not everyone could travel. And, today they can't really technically do that because we so outnumber them. Although they do still try to use the threat of military force, we have so many different ways to communicate ideas and issues and questions and or to report things that have happened that look very bad for the powers that be or were, soon to be were. And so, but today it's become a psychological warfare using the media, music, movies. Um, they can't really use force. So what they're trying to do is project a psychological matrix over people to get us to trap ourselves with our own minds. In other words, build our own prisons. And even that's failing now. So, because they've been exposed for a lot of the dark magic that they have been doing for millennia, and even longer than that. We truly don't know how far that goes back. Uh, the use of dark magic, we just don't know, at least not yet. And as we begin, as we are fully into the awakening process, and people are stepping outside the matrix, and it's really encouraging how many people are actually doing that, intuitively stepping away from it. They're looking at this and they're like, wait a minute, I would never agree to this. And I think what's happening, which is really, really interesting, is that parents of young children, when the kids come home and they start talking about what they're learning in school, the parents are like, wait, what? What are you learning in school? And they've begun this process of fighting back against the system, the educational system, and the governmental structure, the administrative system. They begin this process of fighting back and questioning them. And, the more and more town meetings and school board meetings that people are recording, we are seeing this profound pushback. And again, that's all at a local level. And that's exactly where the fight is for most of the world, is on a local level. Um, that local level, that infrastructure of uh, secrecy, of manipulation, is the foundation of what supports the governments. Okay, we are always the legs they stand on. We have always been the legs that these empires and infrastructures stand on. It's the people. So they have to control and manipulate the people in order for their infrastructure, their power structure to stand. The minute we don't, that system collapses because it can't live by itself on its own. It's all been designed to feed off of the people. And when the people step out of that and step away from it and don't feed it with its money, with its fear, with its so surrender, when we stand there together, shoulder to shoulder, and call bullshit, that structure begins its collapse, its own demise, because it's not genuine. It's all a manipulation. And the minute you can't manipulate, it begins to erode and fall apart. And that's what we're seeing on a big scale, on a global scale. And listening to Elena and JP and many of the other people that you're talking to, that whole system that's been in our solar system is beginning to collapse as well. And as it collapses, because nature hates a void, more positive energy is entering the system in order to fill that gap. So as the darkness recedes, more light enters to replace it. And we see that not only in the solar system and the galaxy, but we also see it here on our own planet. Because, we're all part of a much bigger system. The Earth, our solar system, is part of a much bigger system of of humanity, of life. And I know a lot of folks just haven't gotten there yet, but at least they're waking up here, whether it's local, whether it's community, whether it's state, province, um, whatever it is, people are beginning to take back their power. They're withdrawing their consent from what it is that we have been living under for a very, very long time. And those are all very, very positive moves. And I think we've passed that threshold, that flipping point. I think we've passed it already, because we're seeing an acceleration of the demise of the deep state, the global cabal,
Mm-hmm.
the regressive presence, not only on the planet, but also in our solar system. And then, that's all very, very positive. That shows a real shift in frequency to a higher frequency, which means we're getting closer to another realm of frequencies, such as fourth or even fifth. And that's always the goal: is evolution, evolvement to a higher consciousness is always the goal. It's always been the goal.
Now,
Um,
what's the catalyst for that? What was the primary catalyst for that? I mean, people talk about entering a particular area of the photon belt, that our solar system's moved into the photon belt, that the Earth is awakening, that Gaia is wanting to evolve into the fourth density, and there's solar waves coming from the galactic core into our sun and into the earth, and that's triggering the awakening and all sorts of things. But I think, like one of the big awakening uh, events or triggers was the election of Donald Trump. I mean, I look at that. I look at what happened to him, like the WikiLeaks.